Okay, so underneath the car, beginning at the back, we've got the bracket to hold the fuel pump, fuel filters, and also to protect protect them and the fuel tank from stuff at the back. We've got the sump welded to the fuel tank. There you can see the fuel filter. Beyond that, you can see the fuel pump and then the secondary fuel filter. The owner did request that all the lines be flexible, and so we've got about 9 inches of the high pressure fuel injection hose. The rest of it is all braided stainless steel. Let's see if I can get rolling here. There is the vent. The Curry rear end comes with the hose barb style. We went ahead and put one of the little metal cap ones in there. Hopefully it won't spit any oil out of the rear end through that cap. We'll have to keep an eye on that one. There's the brake line to the caliper, and then the extra long flexible brake lines. Because this rear end drops so much, you can see right there why the rear end drops so much. That shock spacer on top of the shock, and then of course the ultra long shackles contribute to that. Of course, like I said, this is a Curry 9-inch rear end with the True Track and Willwood disc brakes. Got them all bled out. Then the fuel lines are all secured with Adel clamps, and where they needed to be kind of joined together, we use these aluminum AN6 clamps to join them that way. We added brackets where needed. There you can see the Adels on the brake line. This is approximately where the stock brake line goes into the flexible line to the rear end, the stock rear end. Obviously, we've changed that quite a bit to go with this Curry 9-inch with the disc brakes. We've also secured the battery cables with Adels to make sure that they're securely in place. Everything is neatly attached to the frame. We've got the very nice aluminum, large diameter drive shaft going to the Curry rear end. We have removed the emergency brake bracket because when you let the rear end drop, the drive shaft was hitting the bracket, and of course the cables were missing at the rear. We're not sure whether the front cables work or not. Basically, these brackets would have to be modified to drop it down. For right now, we've got the cable tied up on the cross member so that it can be used if need be when the time comes. We've got the cherry bombs. Got 2 of them with the hangers, making them secure. One of the odd things about this is the engine is actually higher a little bit on the left side, but this muffler is hanging lower than the right side muffler. It's either the muffler, the flange is welded on crooked, or the collectors are a little bit funky on the headers. But this one runs slightly uphill, this one runs slightly downhill. It's not a lot, but it is noticeable. That's the drive shaft hoop. I did have to widen it to clear this massive drive shaft because it was hitting. There's the back of the 4L60E. You can see where we've routed the shifter cable around, and then there's the electrical connections. One for the speed sensor, and then one for the actual control of the unit up front. This is the Summit 4L60E with the aluminum pan. There you can see where we've got the O2 sensor bung welded into the muffler right there, and you can see more of the fuel lines going up there. And then we've the customer Martin also wanted the transmission cooler lines to be flexible as well, so we've got a bracket right there to keep them up, and then we've got one right there to keep it out of the steering mechanism. There you can see where we've got a ground strap that runs from the frame. This is the frame rail that the negative battery cable attaches to, and it's going over to the engine. We're also sharing it with, I don't know whether you can see it or not, but there is a wire that runs into the dash. So we've got a good solid ground for it. The output, the one that goes to the cooler, comes underneath the motor. It's secured so that it's not going to touch, goes into the radiator. And when it comes out of the radiator, then it goes through the core support to the radiator. Of course, this is the blueprint. They call it a 383, but then in the text it does say that it's a stock bore 350 block. Well, it's their own block. You can see there they've actually cast it. There's the blueprint logo on the side of the block. So this is a brand new block with a 4-inch bore. So it's actually a 377. I did have to put the later Camaro style oil pan on it to clear the steering linkage. So that's not as it came from Blueprint, but it's labeled Made in USA, and then it's got the Blueprint Engines logo on the side of the block. It's really a nice piece. They also cast their own heads. It's actually got a serial number. When I talked to Blueprint, they were able to identify which engine it was based on the serial number. That was good. Let's see, what else do we have here? I think that's about it for underneath. I did, when you're setting up the Holley Sniper, they want you to have the engine set at 50 degrees. And on the 57, it's hard to see the balancer when you're underneath the car. So I did go ahead and make a 50-degree mark on the bell housing and the flex plate so that I could make sure that if I had to rotate the engine around while I was under the car, that I could bring it back around to 50 degrees on that. Of course, then there's all the new steering linkage and the new tubular control arms with the coilover shocks and the Willwood brakes. This car has really got a lot of nice equipment on it, and so that's the view from underneath. So we're rolling right along, and I'll be right back topside again. This is sort of an update to the update video that I'm shooting. Some things that have happened in the meantime since I shot some of the original video on this, but obviously before I got it done and posted. And I can't remember exactly what I did, so if I'm repeating myself, hopefully I can edit it out. Anyway, one of the things that we discovered was it was leaking at the fuel sending unit. After all that concern about the filler neck and the sump, those things performed flawlessly, but it did leak at the sending unit. But I believe I've got that sealed up good now so that I won't have an issue there. A few very tiny rubber O-rings and aviation number 3 gasket cement took care of that issue. So it's dry there. Some things that I've done that weren't on the original request, put on some Calvert Racing Series shocks, and then Caltrack bars. These still need to be adjusted, but but they're on the car completely. And I put some 1/4 inch spacers between the wheel and the brake rotors to get the tires off the springs. I think you can see right there where they were doing a little bit of rubbing on the springs. I'll show you what I did on the outside when I get up topside on this. I'll get to the transmission, but the one thing that I did have to do was pull the drive shaft out because of the transmission. And when I did that, I came to the realization that these are not 1350 yokes. When I originally did this, it looked like Curry used 1350 yokes on their 9 inches. It didn't say explicitly in the information online, but all they sell is the 1350 yokes. It turns out that this is actually a 1330 or big cap yoke, and so we had to get an adapter U-joint that goes from 1350 to 1330 big cap, and got that installed. The reason I found that was it had pulled the threads on one of the U-bolts, one of the legs of one of the U-bolts, and when I went to get replacements, I realized this was not 1350 yoke. So we got that squared away. And then moving forward on the drive shaft, even though I had clearance statically on this hoop, it did rub the drive shaft under certain conditions. And so I did a couple things here. One is I widened it further than I already did, and then I did some other tweaking to it so that I have more clearance under here. And then I replaced the hex-headed bolts with button head bolts. So should it come in contact with it, although I've got plenty of gap there, but should it come in contact with it, it doesn't have a sharp cutting edge like the hex head bolts do. The reason that I did have to pull the drive shaft out was that I did have to pull the transmission out of the car. For whatever reason, the flex plate started having teeth break off the gears, or off the ring gear, and the starter locked up. Not exactly sure what was going on there because it had good clearance, sounded good when you spun the engine over, but it started tearing the teeth up. So with the transmission out, I verified with a paper clip and with a 5/1000 shim that the clearances are correct on this new starter and new flex plate. So fingers crossed that this doesn't happen again. Another thing that occurred is that, and I'm not sure whether I can get a good shot of this or not, these 4L60Es have this electrical connector right here, and the plastic piece that's in the transmission inserts from the inside up, and it's got little plastic ears that are supposed to keep it in place. Well, I don't know whether it happened when I pushed the connector on or whether it just happened from the vibrations, but it started to drop down, and when the O-ring got out of the socket, it started leaking pretty profusely right here. Sonex, and I'll put a link, they make a bracket that bolts in using the, I can't remember which, it's the accumulator bolt, and it actually prevents this from dropping down. It's not relying on plastic tabs to keep it from dropping down. So I had to pull the pin and get it installed, get that all bolted back together. And then other than that, there were a few little other things that I changed routing on because as the thing started to settle in, I wasn't happy with the way it was settling in. But basically right now, for all practical purposes, I am done on the underneath side of the car, and I'm ready to let it down and take care of a few other things, and so we'll continue the tour topside. Okay, this is the final layout of the interior. There's that Dakota dash. I'll tell you what, I am really, really impressed with this Dakota dash. I'm glad that he put it in here. It is so much better than the original. and it really gives you a lot of information. You need to check it out. We've got the wood grain steering wheel. It's actually wood steering wheel, 3-spoke with holes, 3 holes each, horn adapter, and then this is the Speedway tilt column. The only thing about this that I'm not fond of is the self-canceling on the turn signals. Did not ever work properly on this, and but other than that, it's really a nice piece. Bolts right into your Tri-5 Chevy, and it's ready to go. For whatever reason, he wanted to leave the clutch pedal in the car, so it's in there. But and then this is the stand. He wanted something that basically went up so that the TCI, TCU would mount. The switches here. This is the performance mode of the TCU. When you flip that switch on, it goes into performance mode. So you can set the shift points. You can set the line pressure. I mean, the shift firmness, the shift aggressiveness. I mean, that's the performance mode. You can actually flip that switch, and if you have your tachometer setting in there at whatever engine speed you want to shift at, all you have to do is put it in drive, flip that switch on, and nail the throttle, and basically it'll shift for you, and it'll shift consistently for you. It pretty much just drives the car for you. This one over here is the torque converter lockup. What that does is, say like you're cruising around town and the converter's not locked up, but it could be. If the converter's not locked up, it's going to be putting out a lot more heat than it should. And so you can pre-select in the control unit at what mile per hour you want the converter to lock up, regardless of what gear you're in, regardless of what your engine load conditions are, and that converter will lock up so that you're not having any slippage in the converter and therefore not having any heat. To prevent drilling holes in the dash, this unit that was built for holding all of this equipment on there also comes around and flips up and mounts the auto gauge tach and the shift light. And that's about it for the interior of the car, other than just putting it back to the way we found it when we started working on it. So let me pause this and go look at something else. Here we are at the trunk. I've had the carpet up and back to get the shocks installed. It still uses the shocks that mount to the floor. By the way, the Calvert installation, the Caltrax and the Calvert racing shocks, I've got a separate video I'm putting together for that I'll either get out before or after this video makes it up there. So if this video comes out after, I'll be sure and put a link to the Caltrax installation. This is the Summit battery box. Because we wanted to reuse the battery cables and make this fit in the car so that we could get the battery in and out and make it work. I went ahead and made a couple of braces across the bottom to support it across the spare tire opening, and got the box installed with the hold down, and then the lid goes on, and it has these handy snaps on the side to keep the top down, and then it also has a vent so that any fumes are vented to the outside of the car. One thing that we discussed when I was working on the car originally was that I said the heater blows hot air, blows warm air. He says not hot air. I said no, it blows warm air. He says, well, do you think we could flush it out? And I said I won't flush it out because I knew that if I flushed it out, it would probably start leaking. Well, I didn't have to flush it out. It started leaking. So that's the last thing I got to do to it is get the heater core back in it, and then top off the transmission fluid and top off the coolant. One of the things that Martin did to facilitate putting those spacers on the rear wheels was to get the shouldered tapered nuts. So these actually pilot in the wheel hole while it actually tightens up on the conical taper that's in the wheel opening for the bolts. So he got, well, I think he got 20 of these, but of course we only needed 10. So that's what facilitated that. I still need to get it down on the ground and torque them, but yeah. Let me pause this and go to the front. Under the hood, okay, put a new heater core in there. The old one leaked, and somebody had cobbled this up, so it wasn't the easy job to put it in that you would think. But I got her in. Of course, there's the Holley Sniper. I just attempted to start it. The battery's too low, but you can see where the pressure's bleeding off from the fuel pump. Got the Willwood master cylinder. Got the MSD box. Of course, in the back, we've got the Sniper dual sync distributor. Got I think a Champion aluminum radiator. Got a Durali, I think it's Durali, transmission cooler, and the overflow tank. And then in order to get the turn signals to flash, I had to put resistors in here because we went with all LED lights. And so to get the conventional flasher to flash, I had to put a couple of resistors in, one on the right side, one on the left side. And yeah, so there's the complete 383 blueprint engine in place. Actually, it's a 377. It's a stock bore 4-inch, which makes it a 377, but the common terminology is 383. And so right now I'm just trying to get a charge on the battery to so that I'll have enough voltage to crank it, get it to start. It cranked, but it just dropped down, and I'm sure that the distributor didn't like it. The EFI probably didn't like it. MSD box probably didn't like it. So we're going to put a fast charge on that battery, see if I can't get it up. It's been sitting for a while. It sat here for a while, and I believe it sat over at Martin's for a while. And it's probably just gone down. It's cold weather, and I think he's probably about due for a new battery, but we'll see. Anyway, we'll just make the assumption, just in case I did not wrap up the other video. Let's do this. Okay, so that brings the close to the Martin's 57 Chevy. It's going back to the owner hopefully within the next couple of days. Topped off on the fluids and everything, and hopefully he'll get a lot of enjoyment out of it. He's already put like I think 400 miles on it. So anyway, but for now, like I said, I'm not sure which videos I'm going to post first, this one or the cow track, but I think that will be the last two videos I have. I'll have to see what I've got recorded on this car and see if there's something else that I need to post. But beyond that, for now, Chopper Bob out.